The emergency room had been hell for 12 straight hours, and all I wanted was a beer and silence. Instead, I walked into my kitchen at 2 in the morning to find my wife's phone buzzing like an angry wasp on our granite countertop. Lena was nowhere to be seen. The wine glass sitting next to her phone still had lipstick on the rim. Fresh lipstick. The kind she only wore when she was going somewhere that mattered to her, which, lately, never seemed to include anywhere with me. I'm Grant Ellis, and I've been a paramedic for 8 years. I've seen enough human wreckage to know when something's wrong. The signs were all there. The late nights, the sudden interest in her appearance, the way she'd started holding her phone like it contained state secrets. Her phone buzzed again. The screen lit up with a text from Leo B. Tonight was incredible. Can't wait for tomorrow's plan. I picked up the phone. No passcode. Lena had always trusted me. Or maybe she'd just gotten careless. The message thread with Leo B went back 3 weeks. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through conversations about meeting times, hotel rooms, and something called the Grant problem. He's so clueless, one message read. This will be easier than we thought. The front door slammed. I heard Lena's heels clicking across the hardwood floor, unsteady and quick. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her black dress wrinkled, her carefully styled hair now a mess. Her eyes went wide when she saw me holding her phone. Grant, you're home early. Her voice had that forced brightness she used with difficult customers at the furniture store where she worked as a manager. Actually, I'm home late. It's after 2. I held up her phone. Lose something? Or someone? Her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, guilt, then anger. You went through my phone? How dare you? That's a complete violation of my privacy. Leo B seems like a friendly guy, real chatty about tonight being incredible. Lena lunged forward and slapped the phone out of my hand. It clattered across the tile floor. You have no right! No right at all! I have every right. I'm your husband. You're my warden! She was screaming now, her face flushed red. You control everything. Where I go, who I talk to, what I spend money on. I can't breathe in this house. I stared at her. In 8 years of marriage, I'd never controlled anything. If anything, Lena made every decision from what we ate for dinner to where we went on vacation. But standing there in our kitchen, watching her lie with such conviction, I realized I was looking at a stranger. Who is Leo Barnes, Lena? A friend. Just a friend. Not that you'd understand friendship since you don't have any. That stung because it was partially true. My work schedule didn't leave much time for maintaining friendships, and Lena had gradually isolated me from the few friends I'd had when we met. She bent down to retrieve her phone, and I caught a whiff of cologne. Not mine. Something expensive and cloying that made my nose wrinkle. I'm going to bed, she announced, clutching her phone to her chest. And I'm locking the door. I need space to think about whether this marriage is worth saving. She stomped up the stairs, and I heard our bedroom door slam, followed by the click of the lock. I stood alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the debris of my marriage, wondering when exactly my wife had decided I was the enemy. The next morning, I woke up on the couch with a stiff neck and the sound of Lena's shower running upstairs. She left for work without saying a word, but not before I heard her on the phone with someone, her voice low and urgent. I called in sick to work. After 8 years of perfect attendance, I figured I'd earned a mental health day. Besides, I had research to do. Leo Barnes wasn't hard to find. A quick Google search revealed he was a real estate agent with Pinnacle Properties, specializing in luxury homes. His website photo showed a man about my age with perfectly styled hair, expensive teeth, and the kind of confident smile that suggested he'd never been punched in the face. Yet. His social media was public, which told me everything I needed to know about his intelligence level. Lots of photos at expensive restaurants, luxury cars that were probably leased, and pictures with various women at upscale events, including several recent photos with my wife. There they were, Lena and Leo at the Riverside Festival last weekend, when she'd told me she was having a girls' night with her friend Tracy. Another photo from 2 weeks ago at Chez Laurent, the French restaurant downtown that cost more than I made in a day. The caption read, "Dinner with a beautiful woman who deserves so much better." My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more photos. Lena looked happier in these pictures than she had with me in months. Her smile was genuine, her body language open and flirtatious. She was wearing outfits I'd never seen before, expensive clothes that definitely weren't in our budget. The front door opened, and I quickly closed the laptop. But it wasn't Lena, it was Mrs. Flanders from next door, holding a casserole dish. "Grant, dear, I hope you don't mind me using the spare key. Lena asked me to drop this off for you." She set the dish on the counter, but her eyes were scanning the room like a detective at a crime scene. Mrs. Flanders was 73 and had lived next door for 40 years. She knew everything that happened in our neighborhood, often before it happened. "That's very kind of you, Mrs. Flanders." She seemed upset when she asked me, distracted. "I hope everything's all right between you two." I studied her face. Mrs. Flanders wasn't just being neighborly. She was fishing for information, which meant she already knew something. "Did you see Lena come home last night?" Her expression shifted slightly. "Well, yes. It was quite late, after 2, I'd say. She wasn't alone." My stomach clenched. "Oh?" "A man dropped her off. Nice car. They sat in the driveway for several minutes before she got out. Seemed like they were having an intense conversation." "Did you recognize him?" "Can't say I did. But he's been here before, 3 times this week while you were at work." She paused, clearly enjoying the drama. "I assumed he was a friend of yours." After Mrs. Flanders left, I sat in my living room trying to process what I'd learned. My wife was having an affair with a real estate agent who drove a nice car and took her to expensive restaurants. She was lying about her whereabouts and bringing him to our house while I was at work. But there was something else bothering me, something beyond the obvious betrayal. The text message about tomorrow's plan and the Grant problem suggested this wasn't just an affair. They were planning something that involved me specifically. I called my friend Samantha, a nurse at the hospital where I worked. She was one of the few people who knew Lena well and had never seemed particularly impressed by her. "Grant, aren't you supposed to be working? I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Have you noticed anything different about Lena lately?" There was a long pause. "Why are you asking?" "Just answer the question, Sam." "She's been different when she comes to the hospital functions. More confident, I guess. And she's been asking weird questions about your work schedule, your salary, things like that. I thought it was odd because she should already know those things." "What kind of questions?" "Like how much overtime you get, whether you have access to medications, if there are security cameras in the ambulance bay. Stuff that seemed random at the time, but now that you're asking..." "Sam, I think I'm in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" Before I could answer, my phone beeped with an incoming call. Lena. "I have to go, but Sam, don't mention this conversation to anyone." I answered Lena's call. "Hello?" "Grant, we need to talk. I'm coming home early." "About what?" "About last night. About us. About everything." Her voice sounded different, scared. "I think I've made a terrible mistake." She hung up before I could respond. I stared at my phone, wondering if this was genuine remorse or just another manipulation. After what I'd discovered this morning, I wasn't inclined to give her the benefit of the doubt. 20 minutes later, Lena's car pulled into the driveway. She came through the front door slowly, her eyes red-rimmed and her usual confidence nowhere to be seen. "Grant, I need to tell you something." Lena sat on the edge of our couch like she was afraid it might collapse under her weight. She kept twisting her wedding ring around her finger, a nervous habit I hadn't seen since the early days of our marriage, when she was still pretending to be vulnerable. "I've been seeing someone," she said without looking at me. "I know. Leo Barnes." Her head snapped up. "How do you... Your phone, his social media, Mrs. Flanders. Take your pick. I settled into the chair across from her, maintaining distance. The question is, what's this plan you two have been cooking up? What plan? Grant, I don't know what you're talking about. The text message, Lena, about tomorrow's plan and the Grant problem. What exactly am I a problem for? She was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her calculating how much to admit. This was the Lena I'd learned to recognize over the years, the one who treated every conversation like a negotiation. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Leo has some financial issues. He owes money to some people, and we thought maybe you could help. Help how? You have access to medical supplies, pain medications, things that are worth money on the street. I stared at her in disbelief. You want me to steal drugs from the hospital? Not steal, just borrow. Leo knows people who would pay good money for certain medications. We could pay them back and keep some for ourselves. You're always complaining about money, Grant. This could solve our problems. Our problems? I wasn't aware we had money problems until you started spending our savings on expensive dinners with your boyfriend. She flinched. He's not my boyfriend, we're just friends. Friends who meet in hotel rooms? How did you… She stopped herself, but it was too late. Lucky guess. But thanks for confirming it. Lena buried her face in her hands. Grant, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Leo said you'd understand, that you'd want to help us. Help you steal drugs so your lover can pay off his debts? You're right, Lena. I can't imagine why I wouldn't jump at that opportunity. Don't be sarcastic. This is serious. You're damn right it's serious. You're asking me to risk my career, my license, and potentially criminal charges so you and Leo can play house with stolen money. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. What if I ended it with Leo? What if we went to counseling and tried to fix this? Is that what you want? I want my husband back. I want us to be happy again. When were we ever happy, Lena? Really happy? She couldn't answer that question because we both knew the truth. We'd been comfortable, we'd been convenient for each other, but happiness had never really been part of our equation. I need time to think, I told her, about all of this. How much time? I don't know, but in the meantime, I want you to stay somewhere else. This is my house, too. And it's also the house where you brought your boyfriend while I was at work. So until I figure out what I want to do, I'd prefer if you weren't here. She started to argue, then seemed to think better of it. Fine. I'll stay with Tracy for a few days. Good. And Lena? If you or Leo try to involve me in any illegal schemes, I'll turn you both in without hesitation. After she left, I sat in my empty house trying to process everything that had happened. My wife was having an affair with a criminal who wanted to use me to steal drugs. She'd been lying to me for weeks, bringing him into our home and planning to manipulate me into risking everything I'd worked for. But what bothered me most wasn't the betrayal. It was the assumption that I was stupid enough to go along with it. That I was so desperate and pathetic that I'd commit crimes just to keep a woman who clearly had no respect for me. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. The next 3 days passed quietly. Lena texted me several times asking when she could come home, but I ignored her messages. I needed space to think, and more importantly, I needed time to investigate. I drove past Leo's office on Wednesday afternoon. Pinnacle Properties was located in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. Not exactly the prestigious address his website suggested. Through the window, I could see him at his desk, talking animatedly on the phone. Even from the parking lot, he looked stressed. Thursday morning, I did something I'd never done before. I called in a favor with a friend who worked in law enforcement. Detective Ray Morrow and I had crossed paths dozens of times over the years when I'd transported victims or witnesses to the hospital. He was a straight shooter who didn't suffer fools gladly. Grant Ellis, how's the ambulance business? Can't complain. Ray, I need to ask you about someone. unofficially. Shoot. Leo Barnes, real estate agent with Pinnacle Properties. There was a pause. What's your interest in Barnes? He's been sniffing around my wife. I'm trying to figure out what kind of man I'm dealing with. The kind you should keep your wife away from. Barnes has been on our radar for about 6 months. Nothing we can prove yet, but his name keeps coming up in connection with some pharmaceutical thefts around the city. My stomach dropped. What kind of thefts? Medical facilities mostly. Someone with inside knowledge has been targeting specific medications, high-value stuff that moves fast on the street. We think Barnes might be the middleman, but we haven't been able to connect him directly to any of the thefts. What would happen to someone who helped him? Depends on their level of involvement. But we're talking felony charges, prison time, loss of professional licenses. Why are you asking, Grant? Just curious? Thanks, Ray. I hung up feeling sick. Lena and Leo weren't just asking me to steal some pills. They were trying to recruit me into an ongoing criminal operation that was already under police investigation. Friday evening, I was leaving the hospital after my shift when I spotted Lena's car in the parking lot of Mulligan's bar across the street. Through the window, I could see her at a corner table with Tracy and another woman I recognized as Stacy Morrison, one of Lena's co-workers. I parked where I could watch them without being seen. The 3 women were huddled together in intense conversation, and Lena looked upset. Tracy kept patting her arm and speaking earnestly, while Stacy looked nervous and kept glancing around the bar. After about an hour, they paid their tab and walked outside together. I was too far away to hear what they were saying, but their body language suggested they were making plans. As they reached their cars, I saw Tracy hand Lena what looked like a small package. I followed Lena's car at a distance. Instead of going to Tracy's house where she'd supposedly been staying, she drove to the Riverside Motel on the outskirts of town. She parked in front of room 127 and knocked on the door. It opened immediately, and Leo Barnes pulled her inside. I sat in my car for 20 minutes debating what to do. Part of me wanted to kick down the door and confront them both, but a bigger part of me knew that would accomplish nothing except giving them ammunition to use against me later. Instead, I drove home and started planning. Saturday morning, I called Samantha and asked her to meet me for coffee. We sat in a quiet corner of Brewster's Cafe, and I told her everything I'd discovered over the past week. Jesus, Grant, you need to go to the police. With what? I can't prove they've actually stolen anything yet, and if I'm wrong about their plans, I'll look like a paranoid husband trying to get revenge on his cheating wife. So what are you going to do? I'm going to give them exactly what they want. Are you insane? No, I'm angry. There's a difference. I leaned forward. Sam, they think I'm stupid. They think I'm so desperate to save my marriage that I'll commit crimes for them. They've underestimated me completely. Grant, whatever you're planning, I'm not planning anything illegal, but I am planning to make sure they get exactly what they deserve. Monday morning, I called Lena and told her we needed to meet. She suggested a restaurant, but I insisted she come to the house. I wanted this conversation to happen on my turf. She arrived at noon, looking nervous but hopeful. She'd dressed carefully, not too hot, not too casual. The outfit of a woman trying to strike the perfect balance between remorse and attractiveness. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she said, as she settled onto the couch. I've been thinking about what you said, about the money problems and Leo's situation. Her eyes lit up. And? I might be willing to help, under certain conditions. What conditions? First, I want to meet Leo. If I'm going to risk my career for him, I want to look him in the eye and know exactly what I'm getting into. Okay, that makes sense. Second, I want to know exactly what medications you need and where you plan to sell them. I'm not going in blind. Of course. And third, I want a guarantee that this is a one-time thing. I help you solve Leo's immediate problem, and then you both disappear from my life permanently. Lena's face fell slightly. Grant, I was hoping we could work things out between us. That ship sailed when you decided to sleep with another man in a motel room. She flinched at my bluntness. You followed me? I didn't have to. You're not as clever as you think you are, Lena. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Fine. One time, and then we'll discuss divorce terms. Good. Set up a meeting with Leo for tonight, somewhere public. Where? Mulligan's Bar, 9 o'clock. After she left, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Detective Morrow. Ray, it's Grant Ellis. I need to report a crime that's about to happen. What kind of crime? The pharmaceutical thefts you mentioned. I know who's behind them, and I can give you evidence, but I need you to trust me and let this play out. Grant, if you're involved in something illegal, I'm not, but I'm about to be approached by people who want me to be. Can you have someone at Mulligan's Bar tonight around 9, discreetly? What exactly are you planning? To give you Leo Barnes on a silver platter. The second call was to my supervisor at the hospital. I explained that I had reason to believe someone might try to steal medications from our supply, and I wanted to make sure our security procedures were being followed properly. Any specific medications we should watch for? He asked. OxyContin, fentanyl, morphine, the usual suspects. We'll make sure everything is properly monitored and documented. At 8:30 that evening, I walked into Mulligan's Bar and chose a table near the back where I could see the entire room. Detective Morrow was already there, sitting at the bar nursing a beer and reading a newspaper. He didn't acknowledge me, but I knew he was listening. Lena and Leo arrived together at 9:15. I watched them scan the room before approaching my table. Leo looked exactly like his photos, expensive clothes, perfect hair, and the kind of smile that suggested he thought he was the smartest person in any room he entered. Grant, I'd like you to meet Leo Barnes, Lena said as they sat down. Mr. Ellis? Leo extended his hand. I've heard a lot about you. I ignored his handshake. I'm sure you have. Let's skip the pleasantries and get to business. Straight to the point. I like that. Leo signaled the waitress for a drink. Lena tells me you're willing to help us with our little problem. Depends on the details. What exactly do you need? Nothing too complicated. Just some pain medications from your hospital's supply. OxyContin would be ideal, but we're flexible. How much? As much as you can safely take without being noticed. We have buyers lined up for whatever you can provide. I nodded thoughtfully. And what's my cut? 20% of whatever we make. That seems low for someone taking all the risk. Leo's smile faltered slightly. The risk is minimal if you're smart about it. You have access, you know the procedures. It should be easy for someone with your experience. Nothing about this is easy, Leo. I'm risking my career, my freedom, and my reputation. I think 50% is more appropriate. That's ridiculous. Then find someone else. I started to stand up. Wait. Leo grabbed my arm. 30%. That's as high as I can go. I sat back down. Fine, but I want payment up front for my first delivery. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works. You want me to trust you, but you won't trust me. Either we're partners, or we're not. Leo looked at Lena, who nodded encouragingly. All right, 30% up front for the first delivery. When can you get the medications? Tomorrow night. I work a double shift, which means I'll have access to the supply room for 16 hours. That should give me plenty of opportunities. Perfect. Leo pulled out his phone. I'll text you the details about where to make the delivery. One more thing, I said. If either of you tries to double-cross me or involves me in anything beyond what we've discussed tonight, I'll make sure you both regret it. Leo's smile disappeared completely. Is that a threat? It's a promise. As they left the bar, I saw Detective Morrow fold his newspaper and follow them outside. I waited 5 minutes, then walked to my car. My phone was already ringing. Grant, we got everything. Audio and video. When do you want us to move on them? Tomorrow night, after I make the delivery. What delivery? Grant, you better not be planning to actually steal anything. Trust me, Ray. By tomorrow night, you'll have everything you need to put Leo Barnes away for a long time. Tuesday evening, I arrived at work carrying a small gym bag. Inside were several empty prescription bottles that I'd filled with over-the-counter pain relievers. To a casual observer, they would look exactly like the stolen medications Leo was expecting. I made a show of being nervous during my shift, checking my watch frequently and looking around whenever I entered the supply room. If Leo had someone watching the hospital, I wanted them to see exactly what they expected to see. At 11 o'clock, I received a text message with an address. An abandoned warehouse on the industrial side of town. Perfect. Leo was making this easier than I'd hoped. I drove to the warehouse with my gym bag, knowing that Detective Morrow and his team were already in position. The building was dark except for a single light in what looked like an office area. Leo's car was parked near a side entrance. I walked inside and found him waiting with two other men I didn't recognize. They looked like the kind of people who solved problems with violence rather than conversation. Grant, right on time. Leo seemed genuinely pleased to see me. Do you have the merchandise? I held up the gym bag. 30 bottles of OxyContin, just like you ordered. Excellent. Let me take a look. I handed him the bag and watched as he opened one of the bottles and examined the pills. In the dim light, the Tylenol tablets looked convincing enough to pass a quick inspection. These look good, he said, closing the bottle. My associates here will handle the distribution. One of the men stepped forward and handed me an envelope. Your advance payment, as promised. I opened the envelope and counted the bills. This is only $300. We agreed on 30% of the first sale. That is 30%, Leo said. We're not exactly dealing with premium buyers here, Grant. You told me each bottle was worth at least $200 on the street. Retail, maybe, but we have to move them quickly and quietly. That affects the price. I stared at him, letting my anger show. So you lied to me about how much money I'd make. I didn't lie. I was optimistic. What else did you lie about, Leo? His expression shifted, and I saw the first hint of suspicion in his eyes. What do you mean? I mean, how do I know you're not setting me up? How do I know you won't get caught and give the police my name to save yourself? Because that would be stupid. We're all in this together now. Are we? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I took all the risk, and you're getting most of the reward. One of Leo's associates moved closer to me. Is there a problem here? Yeah, there's a problem, I said loudly. I just realized I'm dealing with amateurs who don't know what they're doing. Keep your voice down, Leo hissed. Why? Afraid someone might hear us? I pulled out my phone. Maybe I should call the police and report a theft from the hospital. Tell them I know who's been stealing medications and where they're being sold. You can't do that. You're as guilty as we are. Am I? I smiled. Those aren't real OxyContin tablets, Leo. They're Tylenol, and this entire conversation has been recorded by the police. The warehouse suddenly filled with bright lights and the sound of car doors slamming. Police! Nobody move! Leo's face went white as officers poured through the entrances with their weapons drawn. His associates immediately put their hands up, but Leo just stood there in shock. You set us up, he whispered. You set yourselves up. I just gave you the rope. Detective Morrow approached us as his officers secured the scene. Leo Barnes, you're under arrest for conspiracy to distribute stolen pharmaceuticals, conspiracy to commit theft, and about 6 other charges I'll think of on the way to the station. As they handcuffed Leo, he looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, Ellis. Yeah, it is. They led him away, still protesting his innocence. One of his associates immediately started talking, offering to trade information for a reduced sentence. The other just asked for a lawyer. Nice work, Grant. Detective Morrow said as the scene cleared. We've been trying to get Barnes for months. What happens now? Now we use what we learned tonight to roll up the rest of his operation, and you go home and get on with your life. What about Lena? What about her? She's not here, and we didn't record her agreeing to anything illegal. Being married to a criminal isn't a crime. I nodded, but I wasn't finished with Lena yet. Not by a long shot. I drove home from the warehouse feeling a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in years. Leo Barnes was in jail, his criminal operation was finished, and I had evidence that my wife had tried to manipulate me into committing felonies. But as I pulled into my driveway, I realized Lena's car was parked in front of the house. She was sitting on the front steps, and she looked like she'd been crying. Grant, thank God you're home. I heard what happened to Leo. Word travels fast. His lawyer called me. He said Leo was arrested at some warehouse with stolen drugs. She stood up as I approached the door. Please tell me you weren't involved. I unlocked the front door without answering. She followed me inside, talking rapidly. Grant, if you were there when they arrested him, you could be in serious trouble. We need to get you a lawyer. We need to figure out how to distance you from whatever Leo was doing. I turned to face her. Distance myself? Lena, you're the one who introduced us. You're the one who asked me to help him. I know, but you asked me to steal drugs from the hospital where I work. You wanted me to risk everything I've built so your boyfriend could pay off his debts. I was desperate. Leo said he was in trouble, that people were threatening him. I thought if we helped him this one time, everything would work out. For who? For you and Leo? She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Grant, I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but we can fix this. We can get through this together. No, we can't. Why not? I pulled out my phone and played the recording I'd made of our conversation the previous week, when she'd first asked me to steal medications. Her voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable, explaining the plan and asking for my help. You recorded me? I recorded you asking me to commit crimes, Lena. I recorded you admitting to an affair and trying to manipulate me into helping your lover. She sank onto the couch, her face pale. What are you going to do with that? Nothing, as long as you make this easy. Make what easy? The divorce. You're going to agree to everything I want. You're going to take responsibility for the affair and the attempted criminal conspiracy, and you're going to disappear from my life permanently. Grant, please. I'm not finished. You're also going to explain to everyone why our marriage ended. Your friends, your family, your co-workers. You're going to tell them the truth about Leo and what you tried to get me to do. I can't do that. It would ruin my reputation. Your reputation? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Lena, you tried to turn me into a criminal. You brought another man into our house. You lied to me for weeks and made me feel like I was losing my mind. And you're worried about your reputation? People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated plan to use me and then discard me when you didn't need me anymore. She was quiet for a long moment, then looked up at me with the expression she'd always used when she wanted something. What if I made it worth your while to keep this quiet? How? I have some money saved. Money Leo doesn't know about. I could give it to you. Money you saved while you were planning to leave me? Money I was going to use to start over. But if it would help us work things out... Where did you get the money, Lena? She hesitated just long enough for me to know I wasn't going to like the answer. I sold some things, jewelry mostly. What jewelry? Just some pieces I never wore anymore. I walked to our bedroom and opened Lena's jewelry box. It was nearly empty. Missing were the diamond earrings I'd given her for our 5th anniversary, the necklace that had been her grandmother's, and the tennis bracelet she'd bought with her Christmas bonus last year. You sold everything? Just the pieces that were worth something. I needed cash for your affair, for hotel rooms and expensive dinners and whatever else you and Leo were doing. I felt something break inside me then, not my heart. That had been damaged for a while. Something deeper. The part of me that had been trying to save our marriage, trying to find a way to forgive her, trying to believe that the woman I'd married was still in there somewhere. Get out, I said quietly. Grant, get out of my house. Get out of my life. Don't come back. Don't call me. Don't contact me except through lawyers. You can't just throw away 8 years of marriage. I'm not throwing it away, Lena. You already did that. She tried to argue, tried to cry, tried to seduce me, tried to threaten me. Nothing worked. Finally, she gathered some clothes and left, slamming the door behind her. I stood in my empty house, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. 3 weeks later, I was having lunch at Brewster's Cafe when Tracy Morrison approached my table. Lena's former best friend looked uncomfortable and kept glancing around like she was afraid of being seen with me. Grant, can I talk to you for a minute? Sure, Tracy, have a seat. She sat down, but didn't make eye contact. I wanted to apologize for my part in what happened with Lena and Leo. What part was that? I knew about the affair. I knew what they were planning to ask you to do. I should have warned you, but Lena made me promise to keep quiet. Why are you telling me this now? Because I feel guilty, and because Lena is telling people that you set Leo up out of jealousy, that you're the reason he's in jail. I wasn't surprised. Lena had always been good at rewriting history to make herself the victim. What do you think, Tracy? I think Leo Barnes was bad news from the beginning. I think Lena got in over her head and tried to drag you down with her. She finally looked at me. I think you did the right thing. Thank you. For what it's worth, a lot of people don't believe Lena's version of events. Especially after Stacy Morrison told everyone about the drug theft plan. I raised an eyebrow. Stacy talked? Lena confided in her about what they were planning. When Leo got arrested, Stacy panicked and told her husband everything. He made her go to the police. Is Lena in legal trouble? Not criminal trouble. But her boss found out about her involvement with Leo, and she got fired from the furniture store. Apparently, some inventory had gone missing, and they think Leo might have been involved. After Tracy left, I sat in the cafe thinking about justice and consequences. Lena hadn't been arrested, but her life was falling apart in other ways. She'd lost her job, her friends, and her reputation. Leo was facing years in prison. Their grand plan had backfired spectacularly. My phone rang. It was Detective Morrow. Grant, I wanted to give you an update on the Barnes case. What's the news? He took a plea deal, 15 years for conspiracy and theft charges. His lawyer said he didn't want to risk going to trial. Good. There's something else. During the investigation, we discovered that Barnes had been planning to frame you for the thefts if he ever got caught. What do you mean? He had evidence planted in your locker at the hospital. Stolen medication bottles with your fingerprints on them. If we'd arrested him for the thefts without your cooperation, you would have been his fall guy. I felt a chill run down my spine. So, if I had refused to help them, he would have stolen the medications himself and made sure you took the blame. Your wife was helping him set you up, Grant. After I hung up, I sat in my car for a long time trying to process what I'd learned. Lena hadn't just been asking me to commit crimes. She'd been setting me up to take the fall for crimes that were going to happen, whether I participated or not. If I had said no to their plan, I would have been arrested anyway. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I almost couldn't comprehend it. The woman I'd been married to for 8 years had been willing to let me go to prison for crimes I didn't commit. That evening, I drove to the Riverside Motel where I'd seen Lena meet Leo. The clerk at the front desk was a kid who looked like he was working his way through college. Excuse me, I'm trying to reach someone who was staying here a few weeks ago. Leo Barnes? Oh, that guy. Yeah, he stiffed us on the bill, left without paying for the last 3 nights. What about the woman who was with him? Blonde, about 33. The kid nodded. She came by yesterday trying to get his stuff back, but we told her we sold it to cover what he owed us. Sold what? Clothes, jewelry, some electronics. Nothing too valuable, but it covered most of the debt. I thanked him and left, feeling a grim satisfaction. Lena had lost even more than I'd realized. Whatever money she'd saved by selling her jewelry had probably gone to supporting Leo's lifestyle, and now even that was gone. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Lena had agreed to all my terms rather than risk having the recording of our conversation played in court. She moved to another city, supposedly to start over. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was working as a waitress and living in a studio apartment. I kept the house, the savings account, and my self-respect. More importantly, I kept my freedom and my career. On the day the divorce papers were signed, I drove to the cemetery where my father was buried. He'd been a paramedic too, and he'd always told me that the most important thing in life was to know who you could trust. "You were right, Dad," I said to his headstone. "It just took me a while to figure out who that was." As I drove home, I realized that for the first time in years, I was genuinely happy. Not because I'd gotten revenge on Lena and Leo, although that had been satisfying, but because I was finally free from people who had never deserved my trust. I had learned that sometimes the best way to win is simply to refuse to lose. And sometimes the greatest victory is discovering that you're stronger than the people who tried to break you. That night, I sat on my front porch with a beer, watching the sunset and planning my future. I was 44 years old, divorced, and starting over. But I was also wiser, stronger, and completely in control of my own life. For the first time in years, that felt like enough.